Well, my friends, good morning from Arizona. I woke up in Tucson this morning, but decided to backtrack east back towards the Arizona-New Mexico border, because although I'm getting closer and closer to home, I decided that before reaching Southern California, I wanted a little stronger taste of the Old West. And if things go according to plan, I'm certainly going to get a strong dose of the Old West today. But before I can do that, just off the highway ahead is one of the greatest roadside attractions of all time, and I would be remiss if we did not make a stop. So, my fine friends, I present you with The Thing. Or perhaps I should say, The Thing? So what is The Thing? The Thing is an American roadside institution with roots going all the way back to the mid-1950s and has since the beginning been a roadside attraction started originally by a guy named Thomas Binkley Prince, an attorney born in Texas but raised in California, where he originally started The Thing as a little roadside gas station and attraction between Baker and Barstow, California. As an attorney, he was a smart fellow. He could see the writing on the wall that the American road trip was taking over, that highway roadside attractions had the possibility of being profitable, and the original Thing was located on the old Highway 91, which was later widened and eventually became Interstate 15, destroying the land the original Thing was located on just 10 years or so after they had originally started it out there. And so in 1965, the Thing was relocated here at Texas Canyon off of what became I-10 in eastern Arizona, pretty close to the border of New Mexico. But the name The Thing does not refer to a little gas station and roadside trading post. The Thing was always a little roadside museum attraction, and the Thing itself, the grand finale of that roadside museum, is what the name refers to. And even back in Mr. Prince's day, The Thing was famous for having billboards all up and down the highway. It still is today famous for that very reason, saying, "The Thing, what is it?" Legend said that they had billboards all the way from Los Angeles to New Orleans. I'm not sure that's exactly accurate, but certainly anybody traveling between those two locations will have undoubtedly heard of The Thing, because you cannot escape those highway billboards. Now, Mr. Prince very much hand-built The Thing out here in the Arizona desert. The Thing itself, meaning the roadside attraction, was housed in crazy metal sheds behind the gas station and trading post. After he died in 1969, so just a few years after moving here to Arizona, his wife took over, but eventually it was leased to and purchased by the Bolin Company that has all those roadside trading posts we were looking at yesterday. It remained pretty much in its original 1960s roadside attraction form, which is how I got to know it, for decades and decades, until eventually Bolin decided to remodel the entire place pretty recently, and it reopened in 2018 with a whole different twist. I have filmed the old version. I have also filmed the new version on more than one occasion, but the thing about this place is it's impossible to visit too many times. And so, we're back. I love the new foyer here, already giving you a taste of what is inside of the museum itself, or the all-new mystery, as this sign puts it. You see here, it's themed around an 1800s excavation for dinosaur bones, but if you look around, scattered underneath the new stuff, these dinosaur bones, which were part of the remodel in 2018, you can see some of the original objects on display in the original Thing, which, believe me, has always been full of, what the heck is that? All right, once you eliminate the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, it must be the truth. Sherlock Holmes. Dude, I forgot just how nice the remodeled trading post part of The Thing is. The sign over the counter here says, "What if they've been here before? Aliens versus dinosaurs. Explore the museum to find out more." So as if this place wasn't awesome enough already, you start your visit with poetry. Dude, I love the classic The Thing logo. They've had these shirts going back way before the remodel. The Thing, mystery of the desert. They used to always be the yellow and blue shirts, but now they come in many different colors. Got your classic snacks and nuts and hot sauces in here, your whips old Western badges, replica old school metal signs, all kinds of trinkets and gifts for your father-in-law. Yes, Cocapelli merchandise galore. Everything you apparently want in a roadside attraction in the American Southwest, or a roadside store, I should say, including frogs, ceramic pigs, tigers and elephants, Mexican serapes, toys, fireworks, clean restrooms, which I greatly appreciate, best seat in the house, and like the sign says, free admission. And then, against the very back wall, the entrance, or the new entrance, I should say, to the thing. The old entrance used to be way over here, right across kind of from the front door. And the back here, you entered into these old, weird, dusty sheds, right through this old doorway, as a matter of fact. The doorway right next to the Gatorade and Mountain Dew. Back then, it only cost $1 to enter, which is why this was not the only, but the most frequent roadside stop for me when I was in a band and we were dirt poor and sleeping in a van. This is also where we purchased many an illegal bottle rocket to import into California because, of course, what would a roadside attraction be in New Mexico or Arizona without its fireworks? And of course, shelf after shelf after shelf after shelf of the thing merchandise, which I never bought back in the day, but I'm gonna buy some today. And in that spirit of spending money, I'm now headed back to the back of the store, the new entrance of the thing, to pay my $5 to enter the mystery. All right, my $5 is paid. Look at this, what if we are not alone in the universe? What if you were told that all you know about history is false? Everything you've learned in school or history books is a fabrication devised to shelter the citizens of Earth from the truth. Throughout man's time on Earth, kingdoms, empires, and governments have tried to suppress the facts. They allowed shreds of evidence to leak in order to confuse the issue. And as the helpful sign says at the end, what you are about to learn here today is a culmination of over 50 years of research. Oh, dude, it begins with a bang. Aliens riding dinosaurs. How could you go wrong? All right, what if what you are about to see is true? Let the epic loud music guide you into the world of the dinosaurs. And the lady in the front counter told me that the 2018 reopening is not the end of Bolin's plans and remodels for the thing. In 2 years, these are supposed to become animatronic. All right, as ever, I don't want to spoil all the signs for you because that's half the fun, reading this crazy story that started 65 million years ago. But this place asks the question, what if dinosaurs were ruled by aliens from another planet? What if they're not just visiting now? What if aliens have been here before? Man, I don't remember so much music and soundtrackiness being in the thing. I wonder if there have been other updates since the last time I was here. All right, dude, look at that. That is what you want to see on the side of the highway in Arizona. By the way, I should mention, since we're looking at aliens right now and a flying saucer behind them, that I actually saw a UFO last night for quite a long period of time. No, sorry, 2 nights ago when I was driving through New Mexico, there was this weird sort of elongated spherical object in the sky. I thought it was a blimp. It just sat in the same position in the desert, hovering over some mountains forever and ever and ever. As I was driving along, no one seemed to take any notice of it. I was looking at it thinking, is that a blimp? Is that a weather balloon? What the heck is that? And then all of a sudden it went whoosh, up into the sky, or at least it appeared that way from my vantage point. I don't know what it was, so it was truly an unidentified flying, well, floating at first and then flying object. Look, these frickin' aliens. I love this. I love that they're not just off-the-shelf aliens. They are something created purposefully for the thing. Dude, what if aliens were here back in the dinosaur days? If they could get here now, they could probably get here back then. I don't know why they'd want to live in caves, but maybe they did. Dude, you could have almost renamed the place the What If Museum, because this sign right here begs the question, who were these mysterious cave dwellers? Where did they go? What happened to them? What if they are connected to the humans of today? Maybe we're the freaking aliens, huh? Over here they have some dinosaur bones purportedly discovered in the mines of southern Arizona with strange markings on the bones there. And apparently the aliens bestowed the dinosaurs with intelligence because this sign says that with their newfound intelligence, they begin to organize attacks against their alien overlords. The war for the dominion of the earth began. Apparently, the civil war between dinosaurs and aliens raged for hundreds of years upon the earth. Personally, I wouldn't want to be fighting these giant beasts right here. Although maybe if you had laser weapons and other giant beasts to ride on, it wouldn't be so bad. Aliens versus dinosaurs millions of years ago. But the crazy thing is these little woodnicks, these little woodimals, were caught up in the crossfire, I guess. More about them afterwards. Now we're reaching annihilation and aftermath. What if human history as you know it is all a lie? And now you travel through the section where they rewrite human history. Life is revived. The return of the aliens. And then of course some ancient alien style history here and how aliens are the humans and they ran the Persian Empire and all kinds of good fun stuff like that as you travel through these newer exhibits. I'm not gonna read them to you. You gotta come here and read them for yourself. They are highly, highly entertaining to the student of history. What if George Washington was an alien? Now, if you didn't know about the thing, turning this last corner here would probably be like, what the heck? Which is exactly why I love it, because all of a sudden, you come into a room full of old wagons, tractors, and automobiles, and all kinds of fun artifacts, which were originally located here at the thing back in the day, along with some of these woodimals, very similar to the ones Forrest Morrow created for Jungle Island at Knott's Berry Farm. Back in the day, I've done a whole video on that. If you haven't seen that, oh, that is an interesting piece of history. These were all in the thing, which were in these like prefab metal sheds that sometimes didn't have a side on them. They had that kind of crappy old school shed plastic roofing for siding. Some of them were not shielded from the dust. Everything was very dusty and crusty and kind of fun, in my opinion. Look at this, they've tied it all into the new storyline here, very, very loosely, but still in a fun way. And to my very pleasant surprise, the first time I came in the new museum, they've restored all these old automobiles and tractors, shined them up like a new penny in here. So of course you have your alternate world history all over the side walls here, talking about the Amatria, the aliens, and how they try to prevent the war to no avail. That whole storyline is interesting and took a lot of creativity. It's very fun to look at, but what I really like looking for are the remnants of the old thing, these driftwood looking creatures here. I've made one myself that sits in my front yard. I don't think I've ever really shown you guys or shown anybody my own personal woodimal that I've created. It's very hard to find wood like that, twisty old wood to use, or branches or limbs in Southern California. We tend to clean that stuff up right quick. But I'd like to create some more, so if you guys know any landscapers or tree trimmers out there that have a whole bunch of weird branches they want to donate to the cause, let me know. Oh, here we have Dwight David Eisenhower's desk, presumably. Eisenhower, of course, in normal UFO legends, was famously said to have met with aliens. Of course, this says that Winston Churchill himself knew all about it. The Nazis knew all about it. Everybody knew all about it. But of course, the truth had to be concealed from us. Look at this. What if this 1937 Rolls-Royce was really used by Winston Churchill? This is an old exhibit from the old museum at the thing. And there's old Winston in the back, right there. And look at his chauffeur. Oh my gosh. What if Winston Churchill's chauffeur was an alien? And what if aliens are the ones that got him hooked on cigars? Oh no, Winston! More questions on the walls here. This place is full of questions and very few answers. It's very fun to walk through, fun to read through. This is only a tiny fraction, by the way, of all the old artifacts that were here at the thing. I would desperately like to know where those ended up. I got an email from Bolin years ago saying they liked my last video. If anybody from Bolin is out there that can answer that question, what happened to all the other weird wooden animals and weird Old West artifacts that were in here? Because it was packed wall to wall in sheds as long as this room. Dusty, crusty. I'm sure some of it had to get tossed, but what if? What if some of the things from the thing remain? And speaking of the original thing, you got to come all the way through the storyline here about our alternate timeline, our aliens and our dinosaurs. By the way, if they add animatronic aliens and dinosaurs, I hope they add them to some of the blank spaces in here. They have a lot of space. I hope they don't remove anything, because the stuff they put in here in 2018 is super fun. Now I forget what I was talking about, but the original thing, the thing that started it all in the California desert in the 1950s is right back here. They very loosely tied it in to their storyline, which makes it all the better. Like, it makes it a lot more fun. What if the story you encountered was true, blah, 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 blah. And what if the best way to hide the truth is in plain sight at an obscure roadside stop in Arizona? You're right, that is the best way to hide the truth. And then spoiler alert, in this timeline here, it says, what if the thing is the last remnant of a prehistoric cave dweller? And now, my friends, we are gonna reveal it. We are gonna see the original, the thing itself in this mysterious back room here with the howling wind and the X-Files theme song for some reason playing in the background. One last little wooden creature up here. Some of the new murals printed on the wall. It's a pretty ominous sounding cave right here. And behind it all, the original classic roadside gaff, the thing. Here lies the thing, says the sign, saith the sign. What is it? That question has bewildered us, for over 50 years. Keep in mind that originally, the thing, it's always been a mystery, but it never had any of this context. It was just in a sort of cinder block sarcophagus, and you just came over and leaned over it and looked at it back in the day. Now it's all tied into this storyline, or I should say, now the truth has been revealed. And here lies the thing. Turn away now if you don't want spoilers. There it is. I don't know exactly what year, but Thomas Binkley Prince purchased this, presumably in the 1950s, to create the original The Thing, to have people come. And of course the advertising all said, The Thing, what is it? And until you got in there, like a true sideshow attraction. You didn't see a picture of it, a painting of it. You didn't know what the thing was you were gonna see. You entered through the whole museum of strange artifacts and weird stuff, and eventually wound up looking down at this. And there it is, the thing. Astounding, astonishing, Pip. Now, Janet Prince, Mr. Prince's wife, claimed that a man came through, he had 3 of these for sale, and her husband bought one of them to create the original The Thing. It is very clearly a piece of incredible mid-century sideshow gaff, like an old sideshow creation, right? Like a Fiji mermaid or something like that. It is very clearly the coolest, most epic piece of humbuggery in the desert. The first time I came through The Thing, back way before, anyone could just look it up on their phone, on the internet, no smartphones back then, I was like, what is it? What is it? And I got to it, I was like, that's it? That is the thing? What is that? And I love that they kept this original hat. Why does it have that hat? Look at the strange feet, the strange, very straight legs of this mummy here. Perhaps the hat was actually placed by later miners that discovered it to cover the nether regions from exposure. I love that the thing has a baby. No one ever talks about the thing's baby. In the mid-20th century, there was a well-known forger of things like this, a guy by the name of Homer Tate, who used to create things just like this for sideshows and attractions. Janet Prince never actually named the guy who sold her husband the thing over here. So we don't know exactly who could have created it. Actually, for all we know, it's authentic. It's a real thing. That's all we know, and that's all we might ever know. Of course, I'd love to know the backstory. Wouldn't we all like to know the thing? What is it? But I'm also very interested in these, the little wood creatures that used to be in one specific shed on the property. You walk through a series of old sheds at the original thing, and how much they look like the Jungle Island woodimals. You gotta remember, the Prince family had ties to Southern California. They lived there in the 50s, all the way until 1965 when they moved out here. Jungle Island was open by then, and Forrest Morrow, the guy that created the original woodimals, was known to sell them to other people. So these could be original woodimals. They could just be a ripoff or an homage to the original idea. I have a strong suspicion they're somehow tied to Forrest Morrow. They did not come from Jungle Island though, because they don't match up to any known woodimals. However, here they are, alongside the thing, some of the thing's original friends from the old original roadside attraction, keeping watch. And I love that. I hope they never take the thing out of the thing. They need to keep this thing forever. All right, I gotta go. I have filmed the thing many times, multiple ways. I didn't come here today because I thought it needed to be filmed again. I came here today because I wanted to. I passed it last night on my way into Tucson and I was like, dude, I don't care what happens, I am going to the Thing tomorrow. Oh my gosh, they have a The Thing quilt. Somebody please get me that for my birthday. Dude, the music in there was so loud. It would have greatly ticked off my old friend Adam the Woo. Anytime he would show up to a place with music like that, he'd get so annoyed and angry, like, I like traveling around and reliving memories like that, because they're the ones that make me laugh and smile instead of cry and get bummed out. I should mention, by the way, if I'm talking about Adam, that he adored the original The Thing, which I made him visit on one of his first trips out to California. I don't think it was actually the first one. I don't know if he had time, but I remember hounding him until he finally did visit The Thing. And of course he loved it. So it's nice to be someplace that my recently deceased friend also loved. All right, now that I've visited my old friend here, The Thing, time to get rolling and go get my old West on. All right, we don't have far to go from The Thing. It's just a couple of exits down to the next town of Benson. And here it is. We've come into Benson on Arizona Highway 80, AKA 4th Street here, built up against the railroad tracks, which is why Benson exists at all. In 1880, the Southern Pacific Railroad got here to this part of eastern Arizona, and Benson was established as a railroad supply, stop, and transfer point for Tombstone, Arizona, and the silver mining going on just south of here. Tombstone not being a very good place to put the railroad through, and yet an important place to ship stuff to and from on the railroad. I just realized I have not yet changed into my old Western hat here to enjoy the scenes of this old Western town, but look at this across the street, Karate Bushido of Benson. What a great name. This is not the first time I've been disappointed by rolling into Benson and finding the museum here closed, but it is a Sunday as I stand out here, and there's still a lot of Western and small railroad and highway town charm to see here. Just like this is the place where the railroad got the closest to Tombstone, Arizona, this is also the place the interstate gets the closest, so it would be useless to pretend that that's not where I'm headed to next. Look at these businesses on 4th Street though, the street that used to face, well, still does face the railroad tracks. Many of the old original buildings were lost to fires or just neglect and time over the years. There's still quite a few very old buildings over here. Look at this. A very old bar or cantina is across the way. Page's Palace, established in 1927. Cocktails, food, and spirits. Behind me right here. Also closed at the moment is the Benson Visitor Center, built right up against the tracks in the shape of, and probably sitting on top of, the foundation of the old railroad depots of yore. You got Rhonda's Rocks and Relics. It says established 1882, which I'm sure, well, I'm inferring that means that the building was established in 1882. I don't know if Rhonda was around back then selling rocks. Actually crossing the street here and getting closer, ooh, tattoo shop. You can see just how old some of these buildings really are. The sides are always the giveaway, not so much the fronts of the buildings. But then, looking inside here, sometimes you find out the old walls on the side may be old, but the buildings might be newer. A lot of shuttered storefronts. That's typical of small town America, unfortunately. And the Circle K with the lowest price cigarettes. A lot of very cool hand-painted murals in town, but I mainly crossed the road on foot to see this old neon sign. Look at that, the Horseshoe Cafe. Oh, I can actually see now there's neon along the building itself. Look at that sign. That is fantastic, with a neon horse in the center. I wonder if it still lights up at night. Like I said, Benson was the transfer point for Tombstone, so there was a Benson stagecoach line. Wyatt Earp originally came to Tombstone thinking he was going to start his own stagecoach line, which presumably also would have come to Benson. But when he got here, he found out there was a little too much competition to make that profitable. Got into the mining, the gambling. Oh, there's the museum, by the way, on the left. And then eventually went back to being a lawman. All right, there's the most Arizona truck ever. It's not my intention to go down to Tombstone today and do any deep historical dives. I filmed Tombstone before. I'll film it again and do some more historical deep dives in the future, I hope. If you want to know the story of Tombstone, the basic story, I suggest watching the movie Tombstone, not because it's historically accurate, but because it's highly, highly entertaining. One of the greatest movies ever made. Anyway, Tombstone's about 24, 25 miles south of here. Got about 30 minutes to go. I'll see you there. All right. We are rolling into Tombstone now, but before I get to the town proper, gonna pull over here just at the entrance to town to the most iconic graveyard in the Old West, Boothill Cemetery. I can remember being a kid and being at a cowboy-themed birthday party where there was a sign that said Boothill Graveyard. A lot of old graveyards in the West were called boot hills because in the early days of a lot of Western towns when there were a lot of bad men around, the phrase for a bad man dying unexpectedly was he died with his boots on, and then you get buried in Boot Hill. There's a whole tour here. They give you a whole pamphlet so you can get information on some of the people buried here in Boot Hill. But much like most of the people who visit the Louvre do it just to visit the Mona Lisa, most of the people who pay their $6 to visit Boot Hill Cemetery do so to visit the graves of 3 friends buried together in one massive pile of rocks here. Brothers Frank and Tom McClowry, and then their friend Billy Clanton, son of Old Man Clanton, brother of Ike Clanton. And all 3 of these guys were the foes of the Earp brothers and killed during the gunfight at the OK Corral, or as their friends and allies put it, they were murdered on the streets of Tombstone in 1881. They were placed right here because, of course, Billy Clanton was the son of Newman Haynes' Old Man Clanton. Now, if you start digging into Old Man Clanton's life, he was a pretty gnarly guy. All these guys are not what we would consider today to be the best people on the block. For example, one of their friends, one of the cowboys, as most of the movies would call them, Billy Claiborne, shot this guy, James Hickey, because James Hickey kept pestering him to drink with him. Billy Claiborne wouldn't do it. So then Jim Hickey started needling him, teasing him about running away from the OK Corral fight, and boom, shot in the temple. He then later claimed self-defense and was acquitted. Here's another one of their friends, Florentino Cruz, aka Indian Charlie, who was a stagecoach robber and executed for it. One of the guys the Earps were trying to hunt down. You almost don't need the little pamphlet they give you, because on the headboards these days you'll see shot, killed by Apaches, hanged by mistake. By the way, some of these are replicas of originals that have been in here since the very early days of tourist travel and have been replicated all over novelty cemeteries and theme parks and, like I was mentioning earlier, party favors and everything else. Look at this. Shot, killed in blast, shot. Just standing here, I could see another shot, another shot, another shot. A couple that say ambushed by Indians, killed by Indians, shot by Sheriff Behan, shot by Frank Leslie. There's another one that says shot just down here. Most of them, though, say unknown, or many of them do. It's possible a lot of them were shot too. This poor guy was killed while playing cards. This dude over here was shot. And then right next door, here's somebody who was shot, who also shot someone else who was in this cemetery. The point is that these guys living out here had very hard, gnarly lives. Tombstone was not settled as a normal kind of farming town with lots of churches. It was settled in desolation in the middle of nowhere when Ed Shefflin, the prospector who first discovered silver out here, told some of the soldiers in a nearby fort that he was coming out here to do some prospecting. They said, "You ain't gonna find nothing out there but your tombstone." It was rough and rugged country out here with rough, rugged young men either trying to ranch, escaping the law from other places, or coming out here to mine or take advantage of the miners or gamble or drink. There was a whole lot of violence, as you see here, some leprosy, and on very rare occasions, someone would die of natural causes or just die suddenly. By the way, the reason I'm wearing this cardboard souvenir cowboy hat, I see now why they wore them back in the day. It keeps the sun off you. It's kind of nice. Anyway, a rough and rugged life, especially compared to the cushy lives we have now. Even those of us with the hardest lives, going through the hardest of hardships. Still, may we all die with our boots off. All right, Boot Hill being investigated, we can move along now to Tombstone. As cheap as the attractions are individually here, and they are very reasonably priced, probably the first 10 times I came to Tombstone, I couldn't afford to do any of them. I think one time we sprung for the reenactment of the gunfight at the OK Corral, but we mostly just walked around the streets here, and enjoyed kind of the hokey touristy stuff that we could see for free. Some of the real history, like the house Wyatt Earp lived in that we're driving past right now, the statue. I think one of the other times we came, we went into the Birdcage Theater. We kind of did one attraction each time. We were poor, we were broke, we were on tour. We had to make our way as cheaply as we could. Oh, let's let these people cross the street here. Go ahead, sir. No problem. Look at that, there's Shefflin Hall, built in 1881. Named for Ed Shefflin, who discovered the silver out here. And that is what this town was, a silver mining town. The town too tough to die never quite became a ghost town, and in the 20th century came back to life, very specifically as a tourist town, mining the silver out of the pockets of suckers like me. All right, we're gonna turn down 6th Street here. It's dead quiet. We're not here in peak tourist season. It's actually February 1st as I stand here. Sunday too, but that's kind of the way I prefer to visit Tombstone, when it's quiet. I don't expect we'll find it completely quiet though, because it is Sunday. And in Tombstone, weekends always mean visitors. Oh, look at this. Finally, we're back on Allen Street. I can see some of the reenactors down there yelling about their 3:30 reenactment show coming up. This is not the first historic Western town where I've seen banners for a Little House on the Prairie cast reunion meet and greet. There it is, the famous Birdcage Theater, the original one. Tombstone, Arizona, opened in 1881. A lot of stuff went down in 1881. One of the few original buildings left over here from the time of the Earps and the gunfight at the OK Corral era. Don't get me wrong, many of these are original old Western buildings, but like many other old Western towns, Tombstone suffered from a series of fires that burned down a lot of the original buildings Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday would have frequented. I love this place. I love that Allen Street is unpaved. The main tourist areas still have the dirt streets and the wooden sidewalks. They are hokey. There are hand-painted signs everywhere. Awesome. Tombstone is a happy place of mine, which is why I came here today. I just felt like coming here. And one of a very few of my happy places I've genuinely thought about moving to over the years. I thought about moving here way back in the day when I was still in a band. I thought, wouldn't it be cool to open a recording studio here? I don't know who on earth would have been the customers, but I always thought that would have been kind of a cool gig. Ah, these guys are actually yelling out in the streets trying to get people to a 3:30 gunfight reenactment here at the Oriental Saloon. There's a theater inside. They're gonna do a little gunfight in there. I think I missed the last OK Corral gunfight reenactment, which is probably for the best today. And if you wanna see that, I have, of course, filmed it before. Once with Allie out here, actually. We've also done this many times before together. Taking a ride in the old stagecoach. One of the most fun things you can do, get a little historical tour in a horse-drawn stagecoach. I got 2 of them running down Allen Street today. That is awesome. Look at this building, amazing. The modern Longhorn restaurant operates in here. Look at all these amazing hand-painted signs, hand-painted window signs. This building was built in the 1950s, but before that, it was the historic Owl Cafe and Tourist Hotel. And even before that, the old original Western building, when under construction, was the place where assassins hid out to shoot Virgil Earp, Wyatt Earp's brother, as he was crossing 5th Street, right here. So when the original building on this location was under construction, that's where the assassins were hiding out. Oh, I could see that old silver mine tour down there at the end of 5th Street. The modern Oriental Saloon building is another reconstruction, something reconstructed later. The original burned down in a fire. Of course, the original Oriental Saloon is where Wyatt Earp had his faro game, and right in front of this, Billy Claiborne was shot and killed, as well as a fella named Charlie Storm. So a lot of actual violence and shooting took place right here, right on this intersection of 5th and Allen. A lot of the Tombstone story written in blood right here. On the other corners, we have Co-Chiefs of Tombstone, named for the famous chief. Then on the other corner, you've got the Crystal Palace Saloon, established in 1879, it says. Built over the original Golden Eagle Brewery, rebuilt after a fire in 1882. Still serving up drinks in there. Here's a sign about Virgil Earp getting ambushed right here in front of the Crystal Palace, which makes me wonder which street he was actually crossing when he got shot. I thought he was crossing 5th Street, but it may have been Allen. I may be misremembering. And you will find signs, similar signs, all up and down Allen Street here, talking about the violence, talking about other historical things that happened here. You're gonna find about 1,000 places that serve up spirituous liquors and beer and sell Western hats. You got Ike Clanton's Haunted Hotel across the street, so a haunted attraction. By the way, just 15 bucks to ride on the stagecoach, which is a heck of a deal. Ooh, coffee, open range coffee. Handmade knives and laser art available here as well. I love these sandwich boards. Also hand painted. Here's Big Nose Kate's Saloon. Anyway, you can buy anything you want here. You can buy old Western reenactment clothing. Get yourself a drink at any number of places up and down Allen Street. Maybe take the stagecoach tour first if you've never been here, because you're gonna have a good idea of what the town has to offer, because they kind of loop around to the left over to the old courthouse building and then back around onto Allen Street. Oh, look at this, has been repainted since the last time I was here. Arlene's, looking good. Oh, there's a winery over here, so it's not all just whiskey and beer. There's several guys dressed in reenactor clothing, some of whom work here, some of whom are just enjoying the ambiance, some of whom might be ghosts for all I know. There was a kid with a toy gun earlier who ran up to me and tried to rob me, but I didn't have nothing on me. Immediately after the gunfight at the OK Corral, there was a big fire that burned down a lot of the original buildings from the kind of prime of the famous Tombstone Earp brothers saga. One of them right here, Campbell and Hatch Billiards, was destroyed by fire in 1882, right after, I mean months after, weeks after really, the original building was home to the fatal shooting of Morgan Earp. Morgan Earp was back there with Wyatt Earp, playing pool in the back of this building, or well, the original building that was here, and was assassinated, which started the whole Tombstone vendetta ride. That was, of course, after the shooting at the OK Corral, the gunfight, the famous gunfight, which happened in October of 1881. So just 5 months before Morgan was killed, and I think it was just 2 months later that most of the town burned down. So Wyatt was still here during some of the reconstruction, but you don't see the original buildings here today. You mostly see the ones built up after the 1882 fire. And then, of course, there were various other losses over the years. Still, though, it's authentic to the period. It's authentic to the old silver mining days of Tombstone. And you can still buy guns and whiskey and fine cigars right here on Allen Street. It's weird that I've now been coming to Tombstone for so long that I've seen several businesses change hands, several new ones open, several be remodeled and changed. Like I said, it's one of my happy places that I always enjoy visiting, reliving the stories in my head that I've read so much of as we come down here. Further west on Allen Street, well, northwest, start to see things like the old Western photo place that's been around forever. The Tombstone Mint, outlaw teas, books, and more. The Historama, a historical kind of model diorama thing that kind of rotates and lights up while they give you history. I believe it was originally, oh, you can hear the gunshots from the reenactment going on back there at the OK Corral next door. I believe this is still narrated by Vincent Price, or it was originally. Ooh, here comes the dust blowing through the streets, the dusty streets of Tombstone. Oh man, it's a bummer hearing the shots coming from the OK Corral and knowing the reenactment. Those guys down there lied to me. They wanted me to see their show. They told me the OK Corral gunfights were over for the day. That's okay, like I said, I've seen it many times before and filmed it a few times before. Still, it's always great to walk where they fell, as the sign says. Like I said, behind the OK Corral itself. And look at this. You can see exactly what's gonna be there. You can see the shootout, 9 life-size figures of the Earp brothers, Doc Holliday and Outlaw Cowboys, old antique buggies and surreys and coaches and such like things that would have been here at the OK Corral, where you could buy feed. It was a livery stable, you know, so they took care of all the horses and mules and such like things. By the way, that was the last gunfight in there according to the sign out front, so I didn't miss anything. I wouldn't have made it before the shooting started. And also, C.S. Fly's original photo studio back there, which had a smaller room that Big Nose Kate and Doc Holliday rented and resided in. You can wander around inside the OK Corral. You can film and take photos of the reenactment in there, which I've done a few times, like I keep mentioning. The Historama, though, you cannot film. So I can never show any, probably because they think if anyone filmed it, nobody would come see it, but I think it would attract me more. Once I saw it once, I was like, I want to see it over and over. Got all kinds of little shops open here that I've never seen open before. There's Smokey's Emporium over here. Maybe because it's Sunday, there's a bunch of kids playing in the city park, which I've never seen before. And then here's a statue of that OG prospector, Edward L. Shefflin himself. He found more than just his tombstone. He's the one that found the silver. Looks like we got a little construction going on across the street. Hopefully there's no assassins hiding in that unfinished building. Back there in the far distance, you can see the 1882 Cochise County Courthouse. A lot of restaurants and bars are open today. It's a lot more lively than when I normally come through. Oh, and there they are, the covered wagons you could stay in, which were not here the last time I was here. I love this guy's golf cart advertising hot dogs, bratwurst, Polish sausage, 3rd and Allen. I love this, the OK Cafe. The cafe that's just okay. Yeah, there's been several new inns and Airbnbs that have opened up here. A nice hotel, actually, kind of right by the historic downtown that's opened up since the last time I was in town. Look at this. All the comforts of home. AC, TV, refrigerator, full bathroom, sleeps 2 to 4 with bunk bed model. Yes, sir, old downtown Tombstone is hopping today. Way more than I was expecting. I mean, other than the fact that I love it. I don't know why I felt like I had to come here on this trip, because I want to come back and do a more thorough sort of investigation of Tombstone, stay down here and whatnot. I think the last time I did that was in 2020, so quite a while ago. Today I didn't really much feel like seeing the reenactments or going inside many of the touristy spots. By the way, on the right here, you got Wyatt's Hotel with a saloon, theater, and its own gunfights. But there's also a luxury B&B, and according to the pictures of the windows, Jason Momoa has stayed over here, which is pretty interesting. Yeah, I don't know, I just felt like passing through. Kind of feel like a ghost and a stranger passing through town, a rover, a wanderer today, and less of a participant. Oh no, wait a minute, Jason Momoa hasn't stayed here. They said they brought his vodka here, and they want you to keep tagging him on social media so he will come here in person. I don't know if that's the best strategy. That might just annoy him, but hey, who knows, maybe it'll work. Kind of nice to see a lot of the locals cruising around and sitting on their porches and talking to people. I was right that it wasn't a particularly busy tourist day, but it is Sunday, and so a whole bunch of the locals are out here. Look at this old adobe building. In 1881, it was the site of Garrell and Page's wagon shop. And I love the hand-painted sign that probably the person who owned the property put up years and years ago, just because they were proud of their history here. Got another adobe home over there, the Allen English home from 1882. And speaking of 1882, the Cochise County Courthouse. Look at that thing. It's glorious. They got the old cells in there, the old jail cells. You can see the gallows back there. Very cool. Another adobe building directly across the street from the courthouse, built for lawyers' offices in 1900. That's why they call the town Too Tough to Die, because Tombstone didn't freeze up after the 1880s or the gunfight. It kept on going. And many of the friends of the foes of the Earps stuck around the local area, which is why they were not very popular here immediately after leaving. Here's the site of the old Dunbar's Corral. The co-owner was Sheriff Johnny Behan from the Tombstone story, and this says home of the first and only woman mayor, Marge Colvin, 1921 to 2002. And now look at this, on this property, a whole lot of garden gnomes. Got a toilet garden there. A couple of Christmas decorations. I love stuff like this. Looks like a place Pee Wee Herman would be proud to stay. Look at this huge metal sign here, Wyatt Earp's Old Tombstone. I believe that comes from a tourist attraction that is now closed. Somebody kept the sign though, which is awesome. Unfortunately, the Cowboy Coffee Bar is closed. Trolley tours are next door. So if you're here on a normal operating day, or maybe early on a Saturday, you can get some coffee and hop on the trolley. And then here we go, at the dead end of 4th Street, one of my favorite places in Tombstone, the old Tombstone Western town with its Gunfighter Hall of Fame and museum. They got gunfights back in there. We filmed those before too. It's right adjacent to the Good Enough Mine Tour. They have the Tombstone City Library and the old Southern Pacific Railroad Tombstone Depot building. I love that the library is right here, kind of part of old Tombstone. And there's railroad cars. I can hear some of the gunfighting going on in there. They have their own OK Corral reenactment in here, which is very comedic, Very funny, if it's still the same show that I saw last time. They got the hokey miner shacks and old mining equipment back here. It's a good time. Also the perfect place to get a fun pick. Listen to country music playing on the speakers out here. You can hear those gunshots going. In addition to their little theater back there, they've got a little cantina. You can buy snacks and drinks back here like everywhere else in Tombstone. Pretty cool, pretty fun. You always know when the reenactments of the OK Corral gunfight are over when you hear the big shotgun blast from Doc Holliday, and there it is. Oh, I forgot about this. The Rosebush Museum. There is a huge, I think the world's largest, rose tree / bush inside of this building. Well, kind of in a backyard behind it. You can't really see it from the street though. Allie and I went into here. They got a bunch of old artifacts, a very big museum in the front part, which is really cool. And then you think, why do I want to go in the back and see the world's largest rose tree? Trust me, it's actually extremely interesting. It is huge. I was looking for something to climb on, a cheap seat to get a peek, but I'll save it for the next time I'm back in town. There's enough stuff to do in this town. You could stay here for 2 or 3 days and just do all the fun little tourist attractions, have a drink if that's your thing, in the various saloons. A lot of really good smelling food down here. In fact, speaking of food, I'm gonna go back to the car right now and have myself a little snack. That's what I came to Tombstone for, kinda. And even in the most random yards and in the most random places, you'll find old mining equipment. Oh, they're firing again! Old rusty metal and folk art and, well, there's another shotgun blast. Just all kinds of fun stuff buried and scattered around here, sometimes for very good reasons that are obvious, sometimes for no reason at all, seemingly. I love all the side streets and all the various attractions down the side streets that aren't even on Allen Street, the main drag. Here's the Good Enough Mine Tour. We've done that also. Back in the day, you can see the old lift right there, some old ore carts, just on display out in front of it. There's some historical information you can read. Got this lumpy old cactus out here. You can see them drilling holes in some of the rocks. A lot of silver mining and milling was done on them there hills behind the town. You can pan for gold, I think, back there. Be more appropriate to pan for silver, though. Here you go, right back here. The mines of Tombstone. So here's the town proper. We're looking off this way, and you can just see how many mines there were going all back through these hills, the Dragoon Mountains and such like. That's where the rich stuff was. We're looking back up 5th Street now towards Allen Street, which is up there at the stop sign. I'm still cruising along the back streets down here. Past one of them there trolley tours. We're about to end up right behind the Birdcage Theater. This is Tough Nut Street back here. Look at that dog. You're the man now, dog. And that's because I parked right behind the Birdcage Theater. That's where I'm gonna go and eat a snack, use the public restroom, gaze at the new zip line down there. I don't know if you can see the zip line itself, but a little building way down there past the cars is the Outlaw Zip Line. Anyway, and then I'm gonna figure out what the heck I'm gonna do next. I'm close to home. With enough coffee, I could probably go straight home from here. It'd probably take 8, maybe 9 hours to get back home. I just don't know if I'm ready. I wanna go home. I don't know if I'm explaining. When you see this video, it'll be exactly 6 weeks since my friend Adam the Woo passed away. My whole life pretty much stopped at that moment. I have not been home this entire calendar year, even before that dreadful day, 41 days ago as I stand out here. And yes, I've been counting. I don't know why, but I have been counting. Even before that, I had only been home for about, not even 48 hours when I heard the news of my friend's passing. Before that, I had actually been in Florida for almost a month, basically since right after Thanksgiving. So I essentially have not been home and had a normal day since before Thanksgiving. Like, my life has been a whirlwind since that time, and a really crazy, unfortunate one, like I said, for the last 41 days. But here's the thing, I feel ridiculous having a deep talk with the cowboy hat on, but let it ride, because it feels good wearing the cowboy hat in Tombstone, Arizona. If you can't wear a cowboy hat in Tombstone, Arizona, where can you wear a cowboy hat? There's stuff I need to get home for, starting in a few days. There's stuff I want to get home for. My mom, my dad, my son, my wife, the whole thing. But once I get home, back to real life, back to bills, back to other kinds of stresses, and my grief, my vision quest will have to fade into the background a little bit. For at least a few days. Obviously, it's going to pop back up when least expected and least wanted, as grief usually does. And until today, until I got to Tombstone, I hadn't really thought of that fact clearly. I hadn't really thought about the fact that, well, I'm going to go home and everything will be a little bit different. Mostly for the better. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm just asking myself the question as I wander around these streets, like, am I ready for that? Am I ready to go home? Am I ready to be done with this little vision quest and the processing and the running around old western towns and down the highway? So, yes, I could barrel home tonight. I don't think I will. I think I'll stop and rest somewhere in between just because I don't like to do long haul night driving anymore. I did 500,000 miles back in the band days. Doing that, I was a designated nighttime driver, so I've done a lot of long hauls in my time. Now that I'm in my old age, I like to take it a little easier than that. But the question is, do I want to sit with this the way it is a little longer? Or is it time to go home and sleep well? In other words, do I stay out here another 2 or 3 days until I really, really have to be there? Or do I just keep making my way home from here? I could stay in Tombstone tonight, or I could keep driving a bit, stay somewhere else. I don't know. Normally this is the stuff I think about and talk about off camera to myself, but I've been sharing the journey with you ever since the beginning, and so that's what's going on in my head. All right, here comes the stagecoach. Yes! Ain't that a sight for sore eyes? I love seeing that. They got the guy up there narrating into a little wireless microphone. That's kind of the worst part of it. It's cool if you've never been here before, getting the tour, but one time I paid to have the whole stagecoach to myself and ran around and said, don't bother with the narration, I'm good. You know, I've been here many times. He's like, okay. Then once I was in the box and a captive, he just kept on narrating. Anyway, I'm gonna grab myself something to eat out of the back of the car, out of the cooler, sit there and enjoy a zero sugar Dr. Pepper cherry can, contemplate the future and see where we go from here. Tombstone, Arizona. A little walkabout tour, see what's going on. I want to come back here, and I want to come back here very soon. I'd like to come back here with a few friends, you know, have some lively times in old Tombstone, maybe frequent the saloons, maybe get a duster to go along with this cowboy hat of mine. Tell you what, I do feel old. I'm not that old. I'm in my early 40s, but still, I'm at that age where I'm missing being at the age that all your friends were ne'er-do-wells and didn't have careers or jobs or families, and everyone could sort of take off on a moment's notice to go on tour with you and leave their lives for a month, or even just leave for a couple of days and go on a random trip. Now getting to the point where my friends is like, well, give me 3 or 4 weeks notice. I don't know, you know? That's what I loved about Adam. Adam was game. He was down for anything at any time. He'd always invite me to do all kinds of stuff. I always turned him down, partially, well, I didn't always turn him down, but I turned him down a lot. I mean, almost everything he ever did, he invited me to be a part of, every trip, everything. But Adam made about 10 times the money that I make, and so in order to go do a lot of those things, he'd be like, dude, I'll pay for you, and I didn't ever want to do that. I always felt like, no, man, maybe one day I'll be closer to your level, you know, and then we'll do all of this stuff together. Let me stand on my own 2 feet kind of thing, you know, let me make random land myself and not lean on you so much and all that kind of stuff. I stand by the sentiment, but I bitterly regret the actions. I just thought we had a lot more time. A lot more time. Well, farewell Wyatt Earp's house. Farewell Tombstone. I was just sitting there for a while thinking, I guess going home isn't really going to end the quest. I mean, it may end the vision quest, but there's always another quest. The quest for positivity to be on. It's not going to end my grief or change the new reality very much. There'll still be new adventures to have. And all in all, that might be the very best thing. Because I'm not going to lie to you, I am pretty tired. But before I decide my next course of action, and before we end today's adventure, I'm going to cruise down the highway and head on back to Tucson. I want to come back here soon to Tombstone and do more stuff,
I really want to link up with somebody who knows the local history very well. It'd be cool to have someone that could take you out in a 4-wheel drive and find the old stagecoach roads and, you know, just different spots that are off the beaten track. I've never been out to where Curly Bill was killed. I've never been out to where they found Johnny Ringo. I'd love to do some stuff like that with somebody who really knows the ground. I think I might know a few people who might know some people. So I'll have to think that over for when I'm able to come back. Maybe soon, maybe late. Figure that out at home. Anyway, on to Tucson. All right, I've made it to my old stomping grounds of downtown Tucson, Arizona, and parked here in the temporary 15-minute parking at the old historic train depot. I'm trying to figure out how to get to the other side of it, how to get to the tracks. Let me see if I can get there this way. Yes. Ooh. That is cool. Okay. I'll leave the deeper exploration of the historic depot for another time. What I'm looking for should be out here. This depot, from what I can remember, was built in 1907, I think, by, once again, the Southern Pacific Railroad. But the old depot that existed here back in 1882 was a smaller wooden depot on the same site, same footprint. And it was at that original wooden depot where the train was laying by as Virgil and Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and Allie Earp and all the Earp party were here getting some food, some refreshment, and preparing for Virgil to go on home to California with Morgan Earp's body back to Colton, California, where his parents were living and where Virgil would later live, and have a house that, like I mentioned the other day, not many people visit today. They were here waiting for their train to take them home on to California and finally take them away from Tombstone. Virgil having been crippled by would-be assassins on that corner, Morgan having been assassinated and his body being taken back to California, the Earps kind of leaving in defeat all except Wyatt, who was about to go on his famous vendetta ride. And that ride actually began right here along these tracks, because this is the place where Wyatt Earp and his friend Doc Holliday found Ike Clanton and Frank Stillwell laying in wait to possibly, as they put it, assassinate Virgil Earp for good and for all, or to lie in ambush for the Earp party. I mean, I'm kind of on their side, otherwise it seems like a pretty strange coincidence. And here at this train depot, Ike Clanton once again ran off, just like he did from the OK Corral gunfight, but they put a whole bunch of lead into Frank Stillwell. It became known as the Stillwell murder. Looks like, according to this diagram, the depot was on the other side, so maybe I've heard incorrectly. This map was drawn by Wyatt Earp, where he killed Stillwell, just down here, although this is passenger and freight, so multiple tracks. I don't think so, though. I think I'm reading that diagram wrong, because I've read over and over again that the depot is on the same footprint, which would mean Frank Stillwell was killed off down this way, down the tracks, shot down by Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, found with 2 loads of buckshot from a shotgun in him and several pistol bullets, at least 3. He was shot multiple times by at least 2 people. So whether the shooting was justified or not, and look at this huge old locomotive right here, sitting alongside the tracks as well. Whether the shooting was justified or not, you could tell the people who did the shooting were angry. And the killing of Frank Stillwell was the beginning of Wyatt Earp's vendetta ride, because of course he would go back down to Tombstone, Arizona, being deputized as a U.S. Marshal, grabbing his good old friend Doc Holliday. We visited Doc Holliday's hometown in Georgia on this very trip, along with some other folks and deputies, sometimes including Warren Earp, whose grave we just saw the other day. He would set off on that famous ride that has been celebrated in song and story and movies, and is argued about by historians and Old West enthusiasts to this very day. I've been to downtown Tucson a million times. I've been to the front of the station a million times, but never within the confines of the fence here, where the Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday statue are standing towards, I think, the diagram still confused me, but towards, I think, the direction down the tracks that they chased Stillwell and filled him full of lead. Pretty good likenesses, I must say, of Doc and Wyatt, or a pretty good interpretation, I should say. Kind of an amazing spot to be standing. Yes, somewhere off that way,
A bad man met his end. Crazy. All right, well, I've got to be cruising on out of here, moving on down the road. I don't think I have the steam, pun very much intended, to get all the way back home in one long night drive, so we'll have at least one more chance to talk to each other before the vision quest home ends. At least one more. Oh, look at this dove. Hello. Is that a mourning dove? What a pretty little bird right there. Careful, bird, there was a cat over there inside the fence with that train. I kind of wish I could take the Amtrak train home. Be a lot easier than driving. I could probably get home tonight. Well, I don't know about train schedules. I've never actually taken an Amtrak train anywhere, believe it or not. I don't know nothing about no trains. Never taken one. Maybe I'll take my first train ride soon. Maybe we'll make an experiment of it. For now, I'm gonna hit the open road, blast out of downtown Tucson here, and make my way west. Very cool place though, this depot. I kept meaning to film it on Random Land even for years and years. Oof. I was gonna come here in 2020. Never ended up making it. I was gonna come here a million times during the band days. Never ended up making it. And I just decided on a whim as I was leaving Tombstone, you know what? Even though this wasn't a history video particularly, I'm gonna come and at least take a gander at the old historic depot and the Wyatt, Earp, and Doc Holliday statue that I've never seen with my own eyes. Because if I've learned anything in the past 41, or now, as you're watching this, 42 days, it's that you cannot count on having time. You never know when time is gonna run out. Speaking of time running out, I can't tell you about how John Dillinger had some history here at the Hotel Congress. I can't tell you how I had history here at Scrappy's in old downtown Tucson. For tonight, our time has run out. Check out the links down below if you wanna help keep the show on the road later on this year. And do some more road trips, some more adventuring. Maybe come back to Tombstone. Maybe come back to Tucson for all that. I don't know yet. We got links to the merch store as well. Hats, books are getting restocked. Hot sauce is there, the best hot sauce ever. If I didn't think so, I wouldn't have made it and I wouldn't be selling it. Now that we've done all this and I've said all that, we've done our duty. We can go home and sleep well. There's a dog dragging its leash. Oh, it's that dog. That's the man now, dog. What's up, dog? Yes, dog. Sup, dog? This place is for the dogs. I don't know what I'm doing. Also, that part down there, the part the statue's on the other side of, might be the part built in 1907. This looks like it may have come later. I don't know. Like I said, not a history video. Got to refresh myself on some of the history, which I've always found fascinating. Old downtown Tucson. It's been so long. I miss playing shows down here, man. We had a lot of fun. Shout out to the band The Mondays, Tucson locals, and a Tucson local band called Old Man. Hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey.
Aliens, dinosaurs, conspiracies. Find it all in our new museum for only $5.